If you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, what the hell just happened? If you've ever been ghosted after saying yes, or misunderstood when you were clear, or betrayed by somebody you thought you could trust. This video is going to show you why, and more importantly, how to stop it. I've worked with business owners, team leaders, tradies, professionals, athletes, even founders, and one pattern shows up in all of them. They get stuck in breakdowns, not because they're stupid, not because they're lazy, not because they need fixing, but because no one ever taught them how powerful their speaking actually is. When you don't know how to manage your conversations, you lose control of your results. You get manipulated, you overcommit, and you break trust. You say yes when you meant maybe, and end up either resigned, things are never going to change, resentful, why won't they change, or anxious, how do I deal with all this change? But once you see the structure underneath it all, you get your power back. Your words start doing the work for you, not creating messes you then have to clean up. Now, this is the final part in the series on Basic Linguistic Acts, where we've covered requests, responses to requests and offers, promises, declarations, assessments, assertions, and trust. In this video, I'm pulling it all together, and we're going to map out how each one of these things, these acts, overlaps with the next one, and how they live inside real moments like your business deals, disagreements with your partner, text messages with your friends, your parenting, your leadership, all of it. The last example I'm going to go through is one that I found most people dread: asking for a pay rise. And I've decided that I'm going to show off my really, really awesome acting skills by playing some characters. So at the very least, hang around just for that one. So by the end of all of this, you're going to have a clear framework to diagnose exactly where things go wrong and what you can do to shift them right away. So if you're ready to stop getting blindsided in conversations and start speaking with purpose, you're in the right place. Let's get into it. If this is your first time landing here, I'm Filimon, an ontological practitioner, and this is Functional Chaos. I coach, facilitate, and present to individuals and organizations where I strip the corporate polish off ontology and give it to you raw so you can actually use it right away. Because life can be chaotic, I think that you don't need more complexity. You need structure that actually works, actually functions for when shit hits the fan. Now, ontology is the study of how we are being, how we speak, act, move, feel, and just show up. It's about how we deal with the interruptions and the disruptions that thrust themselves into our lives. How we respond to concerns, our concerns and the concerns of other people. How we build trust and how we break it. How we shape the future with our words and how we trap ourselves in the ones we leave unspoken. That's what this whole series has been about. And if you haven't watched the videos leading up to this, I invite you to go back and do that before or even after this video, because this one will land differently once you understand each of the other ones individually. Because each video is detailed and direct, from requests through to trust, and together they form this framework that shifts the way you listen, speak, and lead. So if you're ready to get better at all of this stuff, click like, subscribe, share it with someone who needs it, and let's map this all out. Before we move into it all, just one thing. In every other previous video, you notice that I was writing things up as I was introducing them. This one's different. I've put them all up beforehand. So I'm just going to refer to them as we speak into them. So here's what we have covered so far in all the videos leading up to this one. We've covered requests, responses to requests and offers, promises, Assessments, which are opinions and judgments and all of these other things. Assertions, which are facts or what is true and substantiated. And trust. Now, most people treat these things like random tools. Pick up one when things go wrong, throw another one in when things feel tense, and then wonder why nothing sticks. But consider this. These acts are interconnected gears. When one slips, the other ones just jam up. And when they're clean and aligned, you get power, flow, and clarity. So let me show you how in a simple everyday scenario. Inside it is every linguistic act that we've covered and all of the ways they either work or break down. I'll move around the board as we do it. So let's call this scenario A, the sloppy breakdown. Say you're working on a team project, and it could be on site, it could be in an office, or even in a group assignment at school or something like that. You'd say to someone on your team, "Can you get that done for me by Thursday?" Sounds like a request, but it's already weak. There's no clarity on what needs to be done, no standard of how well it needs to be done, no real reason behind why it matters, no specific time frame, no consequence if it's not met, and nothing on what done actually looks like. You didn't ask for it. What you did is you sprinkled words in their direction. Now here comes the response to that sloppy request. "Yeah, should be fine." Now that's not a commitment. It's vague, non-committal and unqualified. They said, "should be fine." That's code for, "I'm already forgetting about this." However, you move on, assuming that they've made a promise. You built a whole plan off a half nod. There was no offer in return either. "No, my plate is really full at the moment. I can do it by Friday instead." "No, want me to check that James can do part of it for me." Just silence. Silence is not collaboration. It's just passive resistance with a friendly face. You treat that dodgy response like a locked-in promise, and then you go to make a declaration out to your boss or whoever it may be. It might be to a client. You'll say, "It'll be ready Thursday, don't worry." Maybe it's your manager. Anyway, you made a promise to someone based on a maybe from somebody else after you made a sloppy request. So what you are is the middleman of disappointment. And then what happens is Thursday rolls around, nothing's been done, and now you're scrambling. You feel let down, you start making assessments. You're now in your head building a Netflix drama, starring them as the villain and you as the victim. Start saying things like, "They're lazy, they don't care, I can't rely on them." But did anyone actually check the assertions? Did they actually agree? Did they have all of the information they needed? Did they even understand the task? You didn't ask, you didn't confirm, but you're 100% sure that they suck. There were no facts. And then we land here, trust. Big X, big crossover trust. You don't trust them anymore, they don't trust you either, because from their side, you made a promise for them. You set them up to fail. You didn't listen, and now it's all just one big mess. Trust didn't actually get broken. It was never really built, and you just thought it was. So this example happens every single day. In businesses, in families, in friend groups, in sports teams, so many different areas. Not because people are bad, but because the speaking was sloppy. So before we move on to another example of a cleaner way of the same example, I'm going to repeat the request again and the response also. So the request was, can you get that done for me by Thursday? And the response, yeah, should be fine. So let's now look at the clean path. Let's rewind the same moment. You say, hey Peter, request, I need the marketing draft done by Thursday 10 a.m. It's going to go to print by midday and it needs to include the new prices and to be proofed. See the difference? Clear speaker, clear listener, clear task, clear time, clear standard. Welcome to functional adulthood. And then they say, Peter, I think it was, yeah, I can do that. I can start on Tuesday and send you a draft by Wednesday afternoon. Can you get it proofed overnight? Now that's a real response because it covers one of these 4 responses to a request. Simple. Anything else is really a game. Now you've got clarity, and now here's an offer that may be thrown in. If it's tight on time, I can skip the design tweaks and focus on the copy. That's what Peter may have said. Now we're working with each other, not around each other. Offers are really important. Better than saying a fake yes. You negotiate, you make a proper promise. It has a speaker, a listener, a clear deliverable, a due time, a standard, and a promise. When a promise is this clear, you don't need to follow up 6 times. It either happens or it doesn't. Then, and only then, you can make a declaration. This campaign will hit the inboxes by Thursday 2 p.m. We're on track. And that declaration, it carries weight because the speaking that led to it was solid. Say it once, say it clean, say it backed. Your assessments now sound like this from this situation. They're dependable. We work well together. We're getting much better at this. And these assessments, they're backed with assertions. Proof, data, emails, real action, results. So important to get these 2 clear. Great video on that. This is where reputation gets built, one clean act at a time. So now we land on trust in this situation. You didn't just earn it, you carried it through structure, because trust isn't a feeling. It's built when the speaking is solid, and it's tested when it's not. So just looking at all this, it's interesting, isn't it, how it all connected just then. And we're going to do a few examples on all of this. And I'll get out of the way at the end so you can look at the full picture. Because this isn't just theory, it's actual life. Every breakdown and every frustration you've ever had can be traced back to one missed act. And every moment that felt smooth, where you won, that felt powerful, was because the chain was clean. Requests, responses, offers, promises, declarations, assessments, assertions, trust. These aren't just words, they're tools. And now that you know how to use them, you've got no excuse to keep speaking sloppy. Let me just share a personal story. I just thought of it, where all of these acts came together for me. It was back when I was working in construction. I once heard my manager throw around a vague, sloppy request. Hey, just get it done quickly. There was no clear standard, no time frame, none of these things. Okay, there was a speaker and a listener. But that's not a request. That's a hope wrapped up in a wish. My foreman, not wanting to look bad, threw back a slippery promise. Yeah, we'll sort it out. Now that promise, it just collapsed into delays. The concrete pour date was at risk and the head contractor flipped. My reliability, the team's reliability was questioned. And within days, trust in the whole crew tanked. It was a great learning experience for all of us. And I want to now flip the same story with clean acts, because we did learn from it. You know, a clear request, a clean response, a firm offer, a tight promise. The declaration from leadership that will deliver ahead of schedule. Assertions based on facts, not opinions. Assessments grounded in evidence, not gossip. And trust reinforced with every follow through. Same site, same people, different way of speaking, different result. That's the chain reaction. And we became known for never missing a concrete pour. Language builds or burns, one move at a time. Now I want to move on to the next section because it's important and it's going to become more relatable. Because you might be thinking, yeah, this works in business, but what about in real life? So let me show you in 5 ways how this plays out in just everyday ripples. Number 1, the family scenario. Your partner says, you never help out unless I ask you. What they're actually saying is they don't feel that your offers are there. You're not stepping in. You're waiting for a request from them. And even then your response is usually a grunt or a delay. So then what happens? They stop asking for what they need. And then the assessments kick in. He doesn't care. She's always nagging. And the trust? Gone. Not because you forgot to take the bloody bins out, but because your speaking was passive garbage. Another example, number 2, friendship scenario. A friend or a mate says that he's going to show up and help you move. Doesn't respond to your messages on the day, or he rocks up late, or just not at all. What happened? They made a promise without a real request behind it. No offer to confirm a time. No communication about what they could do to actually commit to it. So now you're packing boxes, sweating and pissed off with the assessment of can't count on them. Declaration, I'll never ask people for help again. Trust, fractured. Friendship slowly drift apart. Number 3, a business or a client scenario. You send an email. Let me know if you have any feedback. They say, yep, all looks fine. You go ahead and launch, and then they flip out because it wasn't how they pictured it. Why? Because your request wasn't clear. Their response was half-hearted. There was no clear promise. No shared declaration about what final actually meant. And now you both held different ungrounded assessments that were never spoken. You're in damage control, not because of the work, but the conversation that never happened. Number 4, a sports team scenario. So you're the captain, game's coming up. You say, let's tighten up our defence this week. Yeah? And everyone just nods. But no one really changes anything because no one really made a request. No one gave a response. And no promise was actually spoken. So what then happens on game day? Everyone's expecting each other to step up, not knowing exactly how. And because nobody does, the ungrounded assessments start flying. They're lazy. He's not serious. She's all talk. And then trust breaks inside the team. Not from the loss, but from the lack of clean speaking. So this isn't just a business tool. It's a human one. And once you start seeing these acts, you're going to notice every breakdown was predictable. And every strong relationship is structured. You're not just speaking, you're building something, or you're breaking it. Are you starting to see how all of these frustrations and disappointments in life come up because one of these things was not being used powerfully? Number 5, a parenting scenario. So let's move on to something that's a common situation at home. Your kid's still on the iPad. You already told them twice to get ready for dinner. Oh, I've got the cane here as well. Isn't that interesting? You storm in and you snap. You're addicted to that thing. You never listen to me. So let's unpack that. Was there a clear request? No, not really. Maybe a vague yell from the other side of the room. There was no time, no standard, no eye contact. Was there a response? Nope, just silence. Or a distracted, yeah. No one really heard that. Was there any offer to help the transition? You want me to give you a 5-minute heads up, Johnny? Or can you pause the game and help me set the table? Nothing, nada. Was a promise ever made? No, but now you're acting like that one was. Now here's where the assessments come flying in. You never listen. You're always on that thing. And then the declaration lands like a brick. You're addicted. As if that's who they are now. An addicted, deaf, lazy bones. And all of it lands in the same place. Trust. Your child doesn't now trust that they're being understood. They don't trust that you care about what they care about. And deep down, they start to question if they can even trust themselves. Because when a parent speaks that way, the child doesn't just hear your words. They start forming their own assessments. I'm a disappointment. I'm not good enough. I'm hard to love. It's always my fault. And then from those assessments, from a young, malleable mind, they start to plant seeds of meaning. An event happens and we make a meaning. That's the power of language. That's the damage of sloppy, shallow, and slippery speaking. And that's why all of this work matters. This isn't about being perfect. It's about being responsible. Because every word that you speak, it's either building someone or it's breaking them. It's creating possibilities or stealing them. I want to move on to the last example before we wrap this up. Before we wrap all of this up, let's look at this. It's a separate whiteboard I put up. It's the 4 phases. It's the 4-phase commitment cycle. It's about managing and making commitments. What it does is it maps out what should happen at any time between 2 people when they make an agreement, or even an agreement with yourself. From the moment you feel a concern to the moment that the agreement is complete. And I want to put this up before we get into the last example. We'll start with phase 1, preparation. So you're noticing something's off, a concern, a dissatisfaction. But most people stop here. They stew, they complain, or they just stay silent. Phase 2. It's the negotiation phase where you want to get a commitment. It's where you make a request, you speak clearly, you look to get a response. You move towards alignment or you don't. Phase 3, performance or delivery. This is about execution. This is where you follow through with whatever that was promised in phase 2. It gets done or it doesn't. Lastly, phase 4, completion, the evaluation. This is where you close the loop. You assess what happened, acknowledge what worked, declare what's next or what's broken. Miss any of these phases and trust wobbles. Skip all of them and you're going to find yourself in breakdown after breakdown, wondering why no one follows through. So now that was a really quick rundown. I'll put a separate photo up because I want to run through this cycle and put it in action with some real examples. So now we're going to talk about the raise, the pay raise. So you want to raise, but you won't speak up. The conversation most people avoid. Now I'm going to act this one out just for a bit of fun. But before I do, I want to set the context because as a business owner for most of my life, this is a concern I've seen countless people struggle with. It's also a fantastic opportunity. I've seen it with friends, family, and countless employees. I've had big, strong, confident men work for me over the years. The type of men who can yell over machinery, handle pressure, and boldly lead big teams. Courageous guys. But when it came to asking for a pay rise, they froze. They mumbled, they avoided eye contact, they waited, they hinted, they built up resentment. And if the pay rise didn't come, they resented me for it and then complained behind my back. The crazy thing was, I would have said yes almost all of the times because, well, they knew I was approachable and I've shared about this in other videos. But instead I pretended not to partake in these little dances because I've always believed that asking for a raise is not just a transaction. It's a moment of personal growth, expansion, a moment to develop presence and communicate your worth, your value. to speak clearly and to make a clean request, to ask for what you want. Because after all, if you can't communicate your value, how can I trust you to run bigger teams and bigger projects? Often these people would go to my manager and tell him, and then he would come back and communicate to me. Coming to the office so often. Nick's been asking for a pay rise. No, he hasn't, I'd respond. He's been hinting. A request is not a vibe. It's not a complaint. It's not a passive-aggressive comment thrown in between other sentences. It's a sentence that starts with, I'd like to ask you something. This is it. The finale, where we're pulling everything together, every single basic linguistic act that we've covered in this series, and it's going to revolve around one thing, asking for a pay rise. Now, don't switch off. This isn't just about money. It's about opportunity and commitment. It's about how you prepare, how you negotiate, how you execute, and how you complete. We're going to watch Nick, an employee, go through the full cycle with his boss, Frank. Hi, I'm Nick. Hey, Frank here. And we're going to go through the 4 phases. So phase 1, that's preparation. Phase 2 is negotiation. Phase 3, execution. And phase 4, which is evaluation and completion. Let's set the scene for this situation here. Nick's alone, he's drained after work, and he's got an internal monologue going. He's chewing on things. I'm doing more than most people around here, running jobs, keeping the juniors in line, taking work home with me, and my pay hasn't moved in ages. Feels like, you know what? Feels like I'm just better off going somewhere else. Then bloody tell him, you've been complaining about this thing for ages, but you say and you do nothing. Nah, yeah, maybe. You know what? Maybe you're right. All right, so what do I actually want to do? It's not just about the money. I want a review. I want clarity on where I stand. I want more responsibility. I want to know what the next step is for me in this company. And Frank's decent. He's approachable. He listens. Only if I'm straight with him. So I need to make a clean request. I need to book a time. Show him what I've taken on. I need to be specific. So this is phase 1, preparation. We see that Nick is recognising his concern. He's been full of assessments, opinions, and judgments that felt like facts. But now he's starting to shift into planning by having a conversation with himself in getting clear about what he wants. He's watched all of the previous videos on the functional chaos series, and now he wants to put them into action. The conversation hasn't started yet, but his commitment has. Phase 2, the negotiation phase, where Nick wants to get a commitment. He wants to have this conversation. And what he does, he's about to go and enter Frank's office. And Frank's distracted at his desk. So Nick enters his office and the boss is sitting there. He's got his mind on other things. So let's run through the 3 rounds, going from weak outcomes to powerful ones so you can notice the difference. Hey Frank, I've been doing heaps of extra stuff around here at work lately, and I'm wondering if maybe, sometime you can look at adjusting my pay. Yeah, mate, we'll get around to it. Nick almost accepts, but he stops himself. He remembers what he has learned. A sloppy request equals a slippery promise, and we heard a few of them there from Frank. Now let's go to round 2 with a clean request. Actually, Frank, I want to be clear. I'd like to request a pay review this week with you, because in the last 3 months, I've run 4 jobs solo, onboarded 2 juniors, and taken on client handovers. That's an additional responsibility that I have not done before. Yeah, okay, but you know the budget's tight, right? You know that, don't you? Okay, round 3, there's an offer and a counter offer here. Nick starts getting bolder because he can see that Frank is being slippery. Normally, Nick would back off in this situation. Instead, he stands in his authority and he backs himself. You know what? I get that, Frank. I do. I understand. Even if the increase phases in, I want clarity now. That's what I'm after. Something that we can both commit to. I'm not asking for everything today. I'm asking for a review of all the responsibilities that I've stepped into. And I can tell you all the extra things that I've been doing. Here, Nick makes an offer, leading Frank to make a counter offer. All right. Instead of telling me, let's do this properly, Nick, email me a breakdown of what you've covered by Tuesday night so I can review it. Then we'll sit down on Wednesday at 2 p.m. and we'll work something out. I can't promise a number to you yet, but we'll have a proper discussion and we'll reach an outcome that we both agree on. How does that sound? Done. I'm committed to stepping up, Frank, so I'll send it to you tonight and I'm going to have everything ready for you. Looking forward to seeing you on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. This is phase 2, the negotiation of a commitment. So Nick started sloppy. Frank gave him a dismissive response, but Nick caught himself. He remembered the video on requests, responses to requests and promises, and it became so obvious what was happening in this interaction with Frank. He flipped it. He made a clean request. He backed it up with assertions, facts, not opinions. He handled Frank's vague response. He made an offer. He accepted a counter offer. And he secured a promise. Lastly, Nick made a declaration. I'm committed to stepping up. I'll send it tonight and see you on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. That's the shift from complainer to achiever. Phase 3, the execution phase, the follow through. So let's set the scene. The week unfolds, Nick takes on new tasks, Frank notices. Here we see Nick stumble. However, Frank offers him support. He sees his eagerness. Hey, make sure those reports are filed by lunchtime because Frank needs them, yeah? Nick, great initiative. But those compliance reports aren't mine. Label them properly, please, because next time they could end up on my desk and who knows when they're going to end up in the right department. You know what? While I've got you, on another matter, I've been thinking, I want you to draft up next week's roster and then I'll sit down with you and review it with you. How does that sound, mate? I want to see how you go at it, so give it a go. Got it, Frank. I'll make sure those reports go where they need to go. And I'm going to start working on that roster tonight for you. Also, Frank, regarding something else, I've come across a supply issue. The supply's been dragging their feet again, and I've chased it once already through some emails, and I really would like some advice from you on what to do next. You know, I'd really appreciate it. Got it. This again. You know what to do? Keep the pressure on. I'll call their manager directly. You follow up with their sales rep again, and what we'll do is we'll hit it from both ends. Notice how Frank's really impressed with Nick's eagerness. Reminds him of a young version of himself. So he even shares his thoughts to his manager. You know what? Nick's not perfect, but he's actually stepping up. He's really trying. He's speaking cleaner and he's really taking responsibility. Another thing that I found is that I can trust him to do what he says he can do. And that means it's someone that I can back, someone we can develop. What do you think? This is phase 3, the performance or the delivery phase. It's about the execution of what was agreed on in phase 2. It's not about perfection, about getting it right. It's about showing up. Nick is learning, he's making mistakes, he's also making corrections, he's making small agreements with Frank and keeping them. Trust. Frank sees this commitment. And when a leader sees sincerity, competence, reliability and involvement, the things that constitute trust, well, trust grows. That's when investment happens. Remember how I said that this is more than just asking for a pay rise. This is not just a story. This is a personal experience that I have facilitated many, many times over the years as Frank. Now let's move on to the last phase. Phase 4, completion and review phase, where we're trying to get some closure. Let's set the scene. Frank and Nick, they sit down again after a few weeks to evaluate things and with the intention to get some closure. Nick, you know what? You've stepped up. The way that you've been speaking and the way you've lifted the crew, I just want to acknowledge that. Oh, thanks, Frank. I've been learning as I go, but I'm really committed to everything that we agreed on when we first sat down in the office all those weeks ago. Also, another great thing you probably want to hear, I've been practicing what I picked up from these functional chaos videos that I came across, Frank. They have heaps of practical information around speaking habits and communication, and they've been an absolute game changer for me. Looks like they're working. You know what to do? Flick me the link, because if the whole crew can apply what you've been applying in such a short time, things are going to change for all of us around here. Actually, I could use it at home too, because things aren't really that good with the kids at the moment. This shows how much Frank trusts Nick by opening up personally. It also gives me an opportunity to give myself a shameless plug. So now let's get on to the pay rise and the declaration. So here's what I'm going to do, Nick. As of the next pay cycle, your pay's going up to what we agreed on. And I'm also going to review it every 6 months. How does that sound? Because I think that you've earned it, not just for the work, but for how you've grown. And more than that, I see you as someone that I can trust and someone I can develop further. Put you through some programs and courses. So this isn't just a raise, Nick. It's the start of your next chapter here. This is phase 4, evaluation and completion. A clear acknowledgement, shared appreciation, and a declaration that shapes the future. Nick didn't just get a pay rise. He created a new identity of himself, for himself, in the eyes of Frank. Now that's the power of clean commitments. Requests, responses, offers, promises, declarations, assessments, assertions, and trust. You've just seen them all alive in one conversation with some very memorable acting. This is how you stop hinting. You stop resenting situations, feeling resigned or anxious at the uncertainties. You stop waiting and you start speaking with purpose. Because when you do, you don't just get a pay rise. You get respect, you get trust, you get a future that you've declared into existence. Look at it all. There's so much here on this one whiteboard. 10 videos. I kept the language at a very high level in this video. If you want to see exactly how all these terms are broken down in a very simple way, please go back and watch each one individually, because I break them all down using lots of personal stories as examples. I'll put the link to the playlist in the description. Let me ask you something to consider. What's the conversation that you've been avoiding? Just take a moment and think about it. Stop waiting for permission, for the right time, or for the other person to miraculously read your mind. Speak it clean. And if you want help turning that into reality, reach out. That's what I help people with. So how do you take all this and make it real out there in your life? Here's your drill. Pick one situation in your life. It could be in business, sport, family, whatever. Run it through all 8 acts and ask yourself these 8 things. What requests are on the table? How are people responding? What offers are missing? Which promises are clean versus slippery? What declarations would shift your direction? What assessments are polluting and sabotaging the space? What assertions can be provided to support you? And what's the current level of trust? Draw it out, map it, spot the weak link, because one weak link in this chain explains more breakdowns than you actually think. So let's bring this home. Over the past 10 videos, we've unpacked the speaking habits that run your life. They don't just live in theory, they live in every conversation you've ever had and you will have. With your team, with your partner, with your clients, with your kids, and with yourself. And when you integrate all of these things, when you clean up your requests, step forward with your offers, keep your promises, declare your direction, ground your assessments, check your assertions, and protect trust like your life depends on it, that's when ontology stops being a concept, a philosophy, and starts being your way of being. That's when you stop reacting and stop creating. Geez, there was a lot in that. So here's my final challenge of the series for you. Don't just nod along. Pick one area of your life and run the full cycle of the 4 phases that we did earlier. Apply the acts in each of them. Clean it up and then see what shifts. Because once you see how all this fits together, you'll never listen and speak the same way again. This is Functional Chaos, where I give you the ontological structures to function when life turns chaotic. I'm Filimon, and this is just the start, because the next series is going to be on ontological learning, where you learn how you best learn as a learner and how you can learn almost anything. It's about who we are as learners, how we show up as learners, how it matters, and just as importantly, who we think we are not as a learner. So much to learn and unlearn. If you want any of the frameworks or structures that I've covered in this whole series, please just go to my website, flick me an email, and they'll be sent to you directly. If you got value from this video, one thing I'd like to ask you is or 2 things, maybe 3, hit the like button, push subscribe, so you don't miss the next series, but also stops me making negative assessments about myself and what I'm doing. Leave a comment with any questions, queries, or suggestions, because I'll have fun with all of them. I've had lots of fun in this whole series, actually, as it's unfolded. And until the next one, as always, take what you will,